So I was having a hard time at level 6, so while that was compressing the last video, I just kind of further sculpt. It should look pretty similar to what I had before. I just kind of further defined the wrinkles and such, and I just pretty much took this with the sculpt tool, and I just used the, basically like a knife. I mean, there's actually a thing for it called knife, but I just like using this. And I just kind of further sketched in the wrinkles, and I fixed the face a bit. I mean, it's not great, but it's better than what it was, as you can see. And I tried to do a little bit with the ear, but I didn't put all the bits in there. It's just kind of gobbledygook. But quite frankly, it takes me hours to sculpt, so I'm not the greatest, as you can tell. Maybe it'll be a bit faster. The nice thing is, as you get better at art, pretty much all of them, not only does your work get better, you actually get quicker at making it as well. So it would have taken me even longer. So for the amount I don't know how long this took me, like 10 minutes or something. That took me a while for that file to compress. So anyway, we're going to continue on from here. And yeah, so I don't really have any texture in any detail. So I just don't think my computer can handle it, because when I was trying to paint, it was struggling. So I'm going to leave it at level 4. But if you have those details, that's cool. I just don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the paint mode now by clicking on paint. Go ahead and make a new layer, and I'm going to do, I almost want to do 1024. I'll do 2048, and hopefully it'll be okay. And I'm just going to call this one primary. Okay. And it's going to make this color, and then I'm going to switch over to my paint tools and switch over to the paintbrush. That's just my generic paintbrush. Now with this, what I like to do is actually switch to that thing I showed you earlier, flatten UV space. And then I'm just going to paint the general colors of everything. So I'm just going over here, and my shirt, I'm just going to give it a little bit of, we'll say it like that. And then I'm just going to brush that in. So let's just make this bigger. And I'm going to paint in my shirt, like so. All right. That looks acceptable. Is this, no, it's a shoe. Oh, that's an arm. Okay. And then my pants are kind of a tan. I didn't even do the belt. Oh well. So we'll look for like a tannish color. It's a little more in the yellow spectrum. Go with that. Done. And I'm just gonna make this brush a bit smaller so I don't. Oh, you know why I'm having an issue? I don't know if you noticed. See how it's showing up in 2? So you need to I gotta take mirror. When you're in this mode, you think it would automatically do it. I guess that'd be useful if we actually laid out our UVs in a symmetrical manner, but I did not. I was like, whatever, it's good enough. So I'm just gonna go ahead and paint this in here. Man, look how slow it is. Oy. So I'm gonna do the best I can with this, but my paint job is gonna be kind of poor just because my computer hates itself and hates me too. So that's all there is for the legs, just those 2. And then I got my shoes, which are like a really dark purplish, bluish, like navy kind of color. Go with that, and where are they? Okay, it'd be this thing here. Okay, and this here. Okay, and then the soles of the shoes would just be like kind of probably has a bit of a green to it because it's. We'll go with that, and so we'll put this here. That looks acceptable. Okay, and then I think the rest is just skin. So this one's gonna end up changing quite a bit anyway. So I'm pretty generic, kind of pale, not very. Come on, buddy. It's actually not too far off of what it was to start with. Try to give you kind of a middle tone of whatever this would be, peach. Okay, so then once I get that done, I'm just going to go to UV maps and just go unflatten frame UV space, and then you'll see it will unflatten frame UV space. Please. Okay, we'll give it a second. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Ooh, that's looking not good. There it goes. Okay, so now we've got that going, so that's good, and it looks a little bit weird. So you can see my video card is definitely giving up on life. Yeah, that's, oh, his arm here is not that color, so I'm just gonna go ahead and paint it here. Oh man, man, it's really doing it. Oh God, it's really. Okay. So I am going to work with what I got here. Hopefully I can remember all the steps without it actually operating correctly. Okay, so we'll call that acceptable because it's just really not very good. Okay, now there are some other things that you can do. So for instance, it has a pencil tool, which is kind of like basically just a really hard brush. Which quite frankly, you could just kind of do this and that would basically be the same thing. You know what I mean? Like just put it on this. But anyways, that's what the pencil is. It's like the pencil tool would be inside Photoshop, but it just doesn't have the aliasing. Or it has aliasing, it doesn't have anti-aliasing. Not really useful. Airbrush is just a really fuzzy one. I don't really find that useful. Eyedropper obviously does eyedropper. Project is kind of interesting. So what that will do is that you can import your own stencil. Okay, so you just click on this and you would add a stencil and then you would grab like a JPEG image, okay? Then when you go like this, when you use the projection, it will paint that onto it, like so, right? Which is pretty cool, right? That's neat. All right, but you might be like, oh, couldn't I just use the paintbrush with the bricks? And the answer is yes, but no. And the reason why is, I'm gonna click back on this. Let's say we'll do just to make it more obvious. Done. It's going to paint through it, but it's going to paint in this color. When you use the projection, it does it in the color of the thing that it is. So whatever the image is, actually the color information will cross, as opposed to the other one, which will just use it like a stencil that you're coloring through. I mean, it's all stencil, but so that's the difference between them. So I've done this before. You get kind of mixed results. So like what I've taken this, not this photo, but a photo of my face, and then projected it forward, and then just brushed through it, and then took the side picture, and then brushed through it, and then try to match them. That is a possibility, but I don't know if you want to do that. Anyway, and then you have other things that you probably are used to. So we have this primary. So next what I would do is probably paint any sort of secondary colors. I don't really have any. I mean, I guess the shoelaces, but I'm having issues, obviously, with this as it is. So I'm going to try saving this and opening it back up and see if maybe it refreshes the screen. And so I'll be back in a second. And if it refreshes, then I'll paint again. If not, we'll just work with what it is. So when I refreshed it, it looks better. It's not so terrible. All right, so that's cool. All right, so yeah, I would paint basically like this, or if my shirt had a pattern or something, I'd make another layer and I'd call it secondary and paint any kind of secondary color. For the most part, my guy's pretty much straight whatever colors, okay? One of the things I'm going to do, even before I paint some of the other aspects, is I'm going to go ahead and paint what I'm called a pre-shading layer, okay? And basically the idea is this, is that wherever there's shadows, you kind of emphasize that. So if something is inside, you paint it darker, and the stuff that's more towards the outside, you paint it lighter. And it just gives it a little bit of pop. So more or less it's an ambient occlusion. But you can actually bake that in here. So we're going to do that first, just to show you what that is, and then we'll do it ourselves afterwards. Okay, so this is going to be a procedural thing. So what I want you to do, hopefully this works, I don't know if my computer can handle it, but I'm going to go to UVs and maps, and then you're going to extract texture maps. We're going to be using this again in a second, by the way. And we'll just call this AMBOCC for ambient occlusion. Choose ambient occlusion, all right? And this can have a target model and a source model. So basically, what that is it's not going to matter as much for this, to be rather honest, because the model we're making, the ambient occlusion should work regardless. But when we do the normal map, it's basically going to make a comparison between the lowest level and the highest level. I'll just go ahead and do that, but I'm going to have it go to, can I handle it? That's 2000. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at level 4, but you should put it at the highest level. I'm happy with level 4. I'm just going to call level 4 my highest level, not the other ones, because I just don't think my computer will handle it. Quality's fine. Now, yours is probably on raycasting by default. Raycasting is supposed to be best, but quite frankly, I've been having better results with the subdivision method. So you can try raycasting. The reason why raycasting better is because you can actually choose how it functions. With subdivision, it's just basically doing what it's doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do subdivision. We're going to generate one map for all targets, obviously. 1024, because that's what I'm working. Oh, no, actually, I'm doing 2048, aren't I? So we'll do 2048. Use global, that's fine. Anti-aliasing, I'm just going to do 2x, but obviously that's going to make sure the edges are smooth. The rest of that's fine. Type is obviously going to be texture, and then it wants a base name. So you have to hit the little thing there, and it's going to save it wherever you tell it to. I'm just going to have it save right to the desktop, and I'm just going to call this AMB. It actually doesn't really matter. It's going to make an image and then put it in here, but I'm not going to... we're going to export this out anyway, the whole thing, not just the ambient occlusion, so it's not going to actually matter. So then you're just going to hit, this is the thing too, make sure you save it. I already did save mine, but save it before you do this, because this will crash. And we'll find out if mine does. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this, and then when it's done or crashes, I will, I'll restart the video. But you can see the percentage down here, it's already at 19. That makes me feel pretty good. Alright, so map extraction successful, and it took this long. I don't know if that seems like a long time. It felt like a long time. Anyway, so we'll close that, and let's just click back and forth. There we go. Okay, so now he looks kind of scary, because basically what the ambient occlusion is, it's a map that what it does is that where there's a cavity, it creates darkness typically. So ambient, you actually get it in the name. So ambient meaning light from everywhere, from all directions, right? So universal lighting. And then occlusion, meaning shadow, right? So things can be occluded from others. So a good way to kind of put this is that if I put you in a white room with black curtains, you guys probably don't know this song, but if I put you in a white room that's totally evenly lit, you would be able to tell where the corners of the room were. And the reason why is because wherever there's cavities and stuff, the light will get more trapped, and it'll be more in shadow. And that's basically what we're doing here. So you'll notice, like, inside of his eyes in particular, these cavities, these cold, dead, scary, frightening cavities, it's darker. You know, actually might be a good example. Let me show you this. Let's go to UV. Let's go to flatten UV space. You'll probably be able to see it here better. So see, like, where his crotch is, right? Because there's going to be a lot of stuff there. But you can see in his eyes, around the backs of his ears, underneath his chin. It's going to create, basically, lightness and darkness, all based on that. Now, this itself I can't use, okay? Unflat from UV space, wait a couple minutes. But what I can do is have it look like this, which is great. This is not refreshing properly. But what I can do is I can take this ambient occlusion, and then, remember I said we had blending modes. If I use multiply, multiply will make it so that the white is transparent and the black is not. So if I do that, the other stuff will shine through, but the black will not. And I am going to do what I did last time and save it and all that other stuff and reload it, because it seems to have problems going from one to the other. I think the issue seems to be from the UVs back, so I'll be back. So, yeah, I went ahead and did it. But you can see, so let me just show you. With it off, with it on. So it just kind of deepens the color. Now, it might be a little bit much, so what you can do is just take the opacity and bring it down a little bit so that you don't, it's not quite as stark. But it's a nice way of just kind of doing what I call pre-shading, okay? Now, other things I can do, so I'm just going to make another layer, and we'll just call this one, we'll call it accents. All right, so I'll make another diffuse layer, call it accents, and here's what we're going to do. So I got this paintbrush. Let me show you dry brush, because we can kind of do the same thing. I'm going to turn this off, and what dry brush does, is you probably can tell by the illustration, is that basically it will paint the surface of things, right? So let's say I go ahead, I'm just going to do like bright red so it sticks out so you can see it. And let's just make this a little bit smaller. Now when I brush stuff, you're going to see that, where's the strength? It's way down. I thought it was way up. It's going to want to brush, and I'm just brushing uniformly. I don't know. Universally. It's going to catch what's on the outside. So it's like you have a small amount of paint on a brush and you brush it across. And that's kind of cool. So what I could do is, you know, use the eyedropper, drop this, go back to that brush, and then I could do like a lighter, brighter version, right? So maybe go up a little bit here. And then I'm going to make way more weak sauce it though. Come on, down here. And then I can kind of brush this across, and that way it'll do kind of the other end of the spectrum where it will lighten it, right? So might seem subtle, but watch. See how you don't see any difference at all? You see a little bit of a delay, but it'll brighten it. And I can do the opposite. So watch, I could take this and then go very dark, whatever, right? And if you remember, control, when we're sculpting, instead of going up, it'll go down. Control does the opposite with the tools as well. So if I hold control and do this, and let me take the strength way up so you can see it. Oh, I have the layer up, sorry. You're going to see it's going to do kind of the same thing. All right? And I got to put mirroring back on. Okay, mirroring's back on. It's going to do more or less kind of the same thing that the ambient occlusion did. Like so. And it gives us a little bit of control. Now this is particularly really good because let's say, my guy doesn't have it, but let's say he had scales and stuff. I could use the ambient occlusion, or I could use this and paint across it, and it would like show it would detail the scale. So like if there was like creases and stuff, it would pick those up because they would be cavities and it would fill it in. So it's a good way of kind of emphasizing texture, is utilizing this dry brush. I'm not really going to do it so much here. But I could, again, I could just take this down a whole bunch and then just hold control and then just use it to sort of emphasize stuff. So to be rather, I don't usually use that ambient occlusion thing because it's automated and I don't have as much control. And to be even more honest, I actually don't use this dry brush either. I will use it for like textural things, like I'm trying to emphasize something. But as far as like pre-shading, I usually just paint it by hand. I'll just use this brush here and then like darken in where I want to darken and lighten in where I want to lighten. I just have more control that way. Now another thing you need to do, I'm just going to concentrate on the face, it's a little bit easier, is add kind of the tips of your fingers, tip of your nose, tip of your ears, are where your capillaries are. So it's basically the arteries and the veins exchanging blood. And so they're more close to the surface and it's oxygenated. So it has this very deep orangey red color. So that's another thing you're going to want to add. So I'm going to take the strength way the heck down. Okay, come on. Go down. Probably should just do it the other way. That was a lot. And let's make sure the stencil's off. This is off. Let's go to fall off. Oh yeah, it's on this too. And let's go in the middle and let's make it like 5. And I'm just going to add a little bit of oranginess on the nose and maybe on the cheeks a little bit and on the brow, definitely on the eyelids, right? On the ear here, there's usually a lot of that deep reddish orange. Definitely on the lips here, maybe on the chin a little bit. All right. And then I would just kind of suggest just kind of going around, and I'm going to go even weaker. I'm going to do like 1%. See something real quick. Airbrush. Let's go back to the brush. I don't really like using the airbrush. And I'm just going to kind of paint up here a little bit more yellow. All right, up on like the top of the head. And then down here, I'm going to do more of a kind of a cyan greenish blue thing. Maybe a little bit more there. Okay. But basically the idea is that the face itself, the skin is, if you look at your skin, it's not a solid color. It is a blotchiness of all these different colors all together. From a distance, it might appear to have like one solid color, but it's very much not that way. A good example of this actually is, let me see if I can look at the colors of the facer on my face. Okay, let's go to images, and let me show you. So this is a common thing that they teach like in painting and stuff, is that if you look at the bottom, it's going to have more of a bluish green. It's because of the lack of blood, and then the most blood tends to show up in this area, and then you tend to see kind of a yellowish color up on the top. Okay, so you can kind of see over here, like here's an example. Here's this painting of my man Washington, but it's a pretty common. You can see it here. Okay, It's a pretty common thing that they kind of teach. But even that being said, even with that, that actually gets spread across the entirety of the body. So I usually do a thing I call like rainbow puke, where I will just put blotches of blue and green and yellow and all that other stuff all on the skin, all over, just dibba-dabba-dibba-dabba-dibba-dabba, just to mix it up. And then if it goes too far, I'll just pick what I want the color to be, the actual skin color, and then I'll put that in there, okay? But the main thing is you do not want to just use one solid color, because it won't turn out very well. It won't look very good, okay? So I would just, you know, play around with that, you know, add the accents and all that other stuff. And then let me show you, I'm just going to save this real quick. Make sure you're saving constantly. As much as Maya crashes, believe it or not, sculpting programs usually crash a little bit more, because you're dealing with like millions of polygons. And you're trying to like dynamically move them around. Another thing I would also mention, my computer's actually having a harder time almost working in this than it does in Maya. And the reason why is that this is really leverages your video card. So if you have a good like gamer video card, it's going to help like a ton. I actually didn't even know if this was going to work without that, because it used to not even work without that, but it's working, which is great. One of the cool things with ZBrush, and ZBrush Mini for that matter, it actually doesn't use the video card at all, which is very odd, because pretty much every other 3D program, that's what it does. That doesn't. It's like one of the only ones, and I'm not sure why, but anywho. So we got that, and another thing you can do if you want is to actually, like, I can take, like, let's say I'll take the primary one here. I can right-click on it, and there's all these other options, but you can actually export this channel to a PSD, and it should, let's see if it does it. It should automatically, oh no, it's just going to save as a PSD. Darn it, hang on a second, maybe it will, well, it'll, yeah, okay, let's just try this out. So we'll just do color, and it should be color.png. We'll just do color, let's save. It should have just opened it up for me. Watching file, okay, it is, okay, it just had to save it first, alright. I thought it would just send it to it, but it'll automatically open up Photoshop for you, right? So this is why this is a really good painting. This is actually probably one of the things I feel like that has advanced the most since I started. Texturing back in the day was horrendous. Like, just really, really bad to work with. Now it's actually, it's okay. I mean, okay, so basically you're going to see it has all these layers in here. So it's showing actually all of them, which is pretty cool. So I could maybe add another one. Come on. And then I'll just put, like, so if there's a tool that you wanted to use inside of Photoshop, where's the toolbar? Tools. Okay. So let's just, you know, I'm just going to draw a wiggly line, right? So I'm just going like that. All you do is you do whatever you want in here. So if you need to heel brush or do any sort of the cool Photoshop stuff, you do what you do. You Control S to save it. Then go back. Saving. Come on, baby. You can do it. Come on. Okay. Go back to Mudbox, right? And then re-import color. Hopefully. Preparing textures for default material. It'll say not responding, which is always a good sign. Still watching it. But if I look at my leg now, you can see there's that line I drew. And I'm just going to close that. I'm going to call that good. And I'm just going to close this guy out. I don't really need him. But you can actually export it out, work in Photoshop, and then send it back. So if you're really good at Photoshop and that's like your thing, you can totally pop it out in there. Do any of those like cool tools and effects and things that it has that this does not, like healing, fix them there and send it back, and then voila, you're good to go. All right. Okay. So the last thing I want to cover, I think I covered most everything as far as this stuff is concerned. Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's a million things you could do with this. So it's definitely worth looking into and what have you. So, but the last thing I'm going to do basically is bake the textures. Because right now, if you were to look at my model, it's going to go down. So I'm just hitting page down to move down a level. Right? This is what it looks like. It's not really that great, right? Still looks pretty... He goes from looking kind of tough to looking like very soft. Anyway, so this doesn't look that great. So I want to bake those high resolution details as a normal map. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to UVs and maps, extract texture maps. The cool thing is when you make these texture map operations, you can just reuse them. So you can have like a set that like, oh, I always bake out all these maps, and you could just have a setup, and then you just click on it, and it'll automatically do it. I'm going to do a new operation, though, and we're just going to call this normal. And we want to do a normal map. And this is what we're doing. So right here is actually a perfect example. So you have a target, and then you have a source model. So this is like a low-res person and the high-res person, right? So they're the same model. They have the same vertices. It's just one's been subdivided a whole bunch, which is basically what we're dealing with here, right? So I have a low-res and I have a really high-res. What I'm going to do is it's going to look at the difference between them and then bake this texture map that's going to give it the way that's going to interact with the light. It's going to give it the appearance of being 3D. So you want to do, I'm just going to do level 0, and then for my level here, you got to click on the level. I'm going to do, might as well do level 6, right? Because I don't think I have anything on level 6 anyways. I'm just going to do level 4. I'm just going to choose again subdivision. Raycast is better, but I don't trust my computer. Image size, I'm going to do 2048. It's fine. I'm just going to do 2x. The anti-aliasing is like exponentially worse as you go up. Obviously, it looks better, but it's going to take longer. If time's not a thing, go up high. You know what I mean? Or if it crashes, try going lower. Compatibility, now this does matter. So you notice it's Maya software. There's also 3ds Max. If you're using Blender, I don't know what that one is. You're going to have to check. But it might have a different way of how it calculates normal. So Maya and Softimage do it this way. So, and it's tangent space. That's what we want as well. So, and it's going to be a texture. It's going to want to know where to save it. I'm just going to save it right here, and I'm just going to call it normal, because it's a normal map, and then we'll hit extract. Tangent quality on the target mesh is low. This can lead to artifacts. Okay. I don't really know what they're talking about, but, oh, this is actually working pretty quickly. Let's see. You can see the thing down here. Now, you will notice that was quick. Sometimes my experience has been whenever you do an operation here, it often does crash, and sometimes it hangs. Like it'll be 100% and hangs there for longer than it took to get to 100%. Just give it time. It actually does a pretty good job of pulling through. So if worse comes to worse, you can just walk away, go do something. You know, give it like 10 minutes. And if it doesn't work in 10 minutes, then go ahead and close it out. But it should work. Okay. So now what it does is it has a normal map. Now, if I hit W, you're going to see, oh, I'm not all the way down, am I? There we go. If I hit W, you're going to see the model actually looks like that. But those details now are baked as a texture, and we can see them right here. So now you see there's another section. We only did diffuse, and here's the normal map. And if you want to see a map like specifically without having the other ones like visible, you can click on it. Come on, baby. You can do it. Right click, and then you can do solo. Solo as diffuse. And what that's going to do is it's going to show you the actual image. So see right here, see how this looks like junk? Let me show you something. Oops. Hang on a second. Oh no, making it worse. Let's all these are off, that's why. Hang on a second. See that line there? It actually isn't too bad, but that's actually why we put that seam there. The seams are still going to show up, and also, oh, that looks okay. Sometimes you get like a, this side will reflect, they'll reflect on each other. So inside the arms, look at that great painting. You might run into issues too, but I'm only actually really seeing really bad seam there. Everywhere else actually is doing okay. But one of the things you can do, if you do end up with like weird, like a blurry, like a blob or something, or, you know, I have this weird like line there, you can actually right click on this. I'm going to solo as diffuse, which basically means I'm going to see the actual image that's put on there and not just the results of it. And now what I can do is paint on it or do whatever. Now in this case, this is way too complicated. I don't know how to, there's no way I'm going to be able to paint these to match. But what I like to do is I just use blur, and then I'll just be like, yo, let's just blur this out in between, and no one needs to know. You know what I mean? So I'll just blur it out, and voila. Now you lose a little bit of, you know, detail, but it won't have a seam there anymore. So I usually go through wherever there's kind of weird seam, like you see right there, like right, that kind of messed it up a little bit. So I'm going to undo, and let's make my brush smaller. Do the brackets work? Ooh, bracket keys work as well, just like Photoshop, so that's good. And I'll just kind of, you know, blur these puppies out wherever I need to, like, fix it. So, but he's actually not too awful bad. Usually, it is so much worse than this. This is actually very not that bad. I think the fall off should be different. Maybe this way. So it's more towards the end, so it's really super feathered. Yeah, like that, we'll say. Okay. And then I'm just going to right click and unsolo. Han Solo. There you go. And now you'll see, oh, still got a little bit of a seam there. I have a seam from the color, not from the normal map. I think. I don't know, that looks kind of crappy. I don't think that's the normal map, though. Shouldn't be. Anyway, so now it has the normal map, and it has the other part, and you can see it's putting on details that just don't belong there. Watch when I turn it off. This is what it normally looks like. Right? It's crazy. So, but basically took that high resolution model and then made it into a texture, in essence, that you can then apply. Now, lastly, what you need to do is this. You're going to have to export out all of the business. So for me, you can, oh, see, I don't know if that's going to work. So this is what I'm going to want you to do to submit the file. I'm going to want you to do this. I want you, on your desktop, make a folder. New folder. Just call this, week 04. Call it your last name. Cone week 04. Okay, make a folder. And I want you to save all of the business into there. Okay, so you're going to take this first. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this first. And then I'm actually going to save it into that folder as well. So you can save it for yourself. Give it a second to save. Okay. I'm going to save it. Control-Shift-S to save as. Someday my prints will come. Is it going to do it? All right. Guess it's not. So save scene as. Oh, is that not there's not a hotkey for it. Go to that folder. So Cone Week 4. And just save the Mudbox file, right? So save that in there. Give that a second because it's moving slow. This is writing. Is that working or not? I think it's still doing. Okay. So you can save the Mudbox file. Then what I want you to do is save all the pieces that you would bring into Maya. So we need to get these textures in there. So what you want to do is over top of diffuse, you right click and you go export channel merge. You don't want to export each one of these individually because in Maya, right, you just have one image that represents the color. You don't have a bunch of layers of it. It is possible to do that with the layer shader or whatever, but we ain't doing that. So right click on this and just do export channel merged and just make it a PNG. And where are you? Right here. Save it to that same folder. We'll just call it color. And I want a PNG. For some reason, it likes to add its own extension. Make sure you take that stupid extension off. And then color. That's great. And then you can do that here too. Right click, export channel merged, and then save it. Or literally, it is this file right here. So I'm just going to drag that and stick that guy in there. Because it's the same thing, whether you do it the one way or the other. So that way, so I have my Mudbox file, and I have these two files, the color and the normal map. And then lastly, in order to bring this into Maya and stuff, you actually have to export out the OBJ. You might be like, well, I brought that one in from before. But if you remember, we did a lot of adjustments and stuff. So even at its lowest level, this is not the same. The model's different. So if you try to put this on the model that you put in here, like that wasn't adjusted in here, it will work, but it might be a little bit off because when it made the normal map, it was for this low-res model, so it won't be perfect. So you want to export out the model itself. So to do that, just go to the object list, select the mesh, make sure all the way down. Actually, you might be able to. I think you can just. There you go. Make sure it's level 0, and then just do File, Export, Selection, and also save that to the same file. So I have to treat a Maya, but we'll call it Sculpt to Maya, and then hit save. And so inside of your folder that you are going to submit, so you'll take this folder, you're going to right click, send to compress zip folder, or if you're on a Mac, right click, compress. It'll become a zip folder and you're going to drop it in there. But inside of it, you should have the Mudbox file itself, the color map, the normal map, and the OBJ. All of that should be in there. And then you'll submit that, and voila, you're good to go. Okay, so feel free to explore with this. Honestly, it doesn't have to look anything like mine. I just want you to play around with it, get a feel for it, what have you. It doesn't have to be sculpted the same way. So do your own thing. Yeah, so that's it. So once that's done, submit that, and next week we should be able to, we're gonna wrap this guy up probably. We do have a couple things to do, but it'll be good. All right, so good luck. If you have any issues, please just email me. I can probably set up. I'm doing a lot of asynchronous classes, so like students have problems, like let's just meet, and then I just meet with them real quickly. For you guys, it'll just be Zoom. I'll just set up a quick Zoom session. We'll just meet up. I'll fix whatever's going on, and then you can go carry on your merry way. Or maybe I can just answer it with an email. All right. So other than that, good luck, guys.